I'm Anil Kumar. Welcome to my series on linear relations. We'll take up 15 word problems and see how to solve them one by one. This is kind of a drill to understand how to write an equation and how to solve. Question number 1 here is, when a number is doubled and added to 12, the result is 46, find the number. So we'll always say, let the number be n. So I'm writing here once for all. So whenever there is a number, we'll just take n as a variable to denote number. So when a number is doubled and added to 12, so number is doubled means 2n, and added to 12, that means plus 12, added to 12, the result is means equal to 46. So we get an equation in this form. So I'll write all these equations in black ink and solve them using the other color, blue. Find the number. Now when we have to find the number, we have to isolate n, right? So we have this equation. Let's begin with the equation, which is 2n plus 12 equals to 46. So we'll take away 12 from both the sides. So we can say 2n is equal to 46 minus 12. So that gives us 2n is equal to, so when you take away 6 minus 2 is 4 and 4 minus 1 is 3, 34. And therefore n is equal to 34 divided by 2, which is 70, right? So find the number. So our answer here is 17. So we can write down the answer as 17. So answer is 17. Now, next question. The result of adding 6 to double the number is same as taking away 8 from triple the number. Find the number, right? So the result is the output, right? Result of adding 6 to double the number. So adding 6 to double the number in this case means 2n plus 6. So is same as means equal to taking away 8 from triple the number. So triple the number was 3n and taking away 8 from. So we write this afterwards, right? Taking away 8 from triple the number. That's kind of very important to understand. Does it make sense to you? Now let us see how to solve this equation. So the equation now which we are going to solve is 2n plus 6 equals to 3n minus 8. So we can actually take this 2n to the right side, 8 on this side. So we get 6 plus 8 equals to 3n minus 2n. Since 3 was greater, I took 2 to this side. I'm trying to avoid the negatives when we take away. So 3 minus 2 is 1, so we get just n. You should not be writing 1 here. And 6 plus 8 is 14. So we know now that n is 14, correct? So our answer in this case is, the number is 14. Is that clear to you? Right. So that is how we are going to answer one by one 15 questions. Now here is question number 3, which says, the sum of two numbers is 50. The second number is 5 times the first number, right? Find the numbers. Now in such cases, you could write as we go along. It says sum of two numbers. Now there are two numbers, right? So we are saying let two numbers be A and B, right? You could use capital letters or lowercase for defining your variables. So we say sum of two numbers is 50. So you could write this as A plus B equals to 50. The second number is 5 times the first. Second number B is 5 times the first. Correct? So we get two equations. Find the numbers. Right? Now, when you get this kind of set of equations, then we may have to substitute one into the other, right? So what we have here is that A plus B equals to 50, and we also know that B is equal to 5 times A. So we will substitute. Let's call this as equation number 1 and this is equation number 2. So we'll substitute equation 2 in 1. Does it make sense? That means we'll replace this b by 5a. So what we get here is a plus 5a is equal to 50. Right, the sum of two numbers is 50 and that gives us 6a, right? 6a is 50 divided, okay. So we get 6a equals to 50. Now let's divide both sides by 6 to get the value of a, and what we get here is kind of a fraction. So in some examples you can get a fraction. Normally when we are saying number, we are looking into natural numbers or integers, but as in this case, we do have a fraction, right? So we can simplify this, divide by 2, and that's best we can do, and that is 25 over 3, correct? So we get the value of a as 25 over 3. Now b is 5 times a, so we will continue this and find what b is. So we can write now that b is equal to 5 times a. That means it is equal to 5 times 25 over 3. Is it okay? So the value of b is 5 times 5 is 25 and then 112 over 3. Correct? So our answer now is that the numbers are 25 over 3 and 125 over 3. Now this is very important example. Some students think when they are starting off with this type of question, they'll always get natural numbers as their answers. But no, you could get fractions, decimals, or something else as your answer. Sometimes there may not be any solution also, right? So that's a word of caution. So let's move on. Take question number 4 now. The sides of a triangle are 3 consecutive whole numbers in meters. The perimeter of the triangle is 48 meters. So what we're trying to, sometimes you may draw a diagram. So let's say we have a triangle, right? So all sides are different. We're saying that sides of the triangle are 3 consecutive whole numbers. Now consecutive means if one is x, the other one is x plus 1 and the third one will be x plus 2. So these numbers are the consecutive numbers, correct? So that is how we have defined. The perimeter is sum of all the sides. So we get our equation that x plus 1 plus x plus 2 is basically equal to 48, correct? So that becomes our equation. Now let's try to solve this. So we are working with the equation now, which is x plus 1 plus x plus 2, and that is equal to 48. 1, 2, 3 x's we have, right? So 3x plus the number 1 plus 2 is 3. So we get 48. To solve this, we have 3x equals to 48 minus 3. And this 48 minus 3 is 45, correct? Now we can divide by 3 to get the answer. 45 divided by 3 is 9. It says how long is each side, right? So one side is 9, right? So our answer this time will be, we have side lengths as 9 meters. The units are in meters, right? So important to write the units. 10 meters and 11 meters. Does it make sense to you? So when you write down the answer, include the units. So I hope that makes sense, correct? Now follow this strategy and try to answer the next question, which is slightly difficult. Question number 5 is, Sam is working in a TV store. He earns $500 per week plus a commission of 10%. Find his earning in the week when the sales is $7,500. What is the minimum sales required for an earning of $1,000 a week? So these are two questions related to given information. Now here we say there are a couple of variables which we need to define. One is earnings per week. So let's say E is earnings per week. And then we have sales S, right? So sales is sales in dollars. So let's say both are actually in dollars, correct? Okay. Now based on this, we can write down our equation now. Sam is working in a TV store. He earns $500 per week plus, so this is a fixed earning, plus a commission of 10% on sales, right? So his earning per week is equal to the fixed cost, which is 500, plus 10%. 10% means 0.10, 10 out of 100, right? So 10% will be 10 out of 100, correct? Which is equals to 0.10. So I'm writing a decimal value here. 10% of sales, that means 10% of S. So that becomes our relation to work with, correct? Now based on this, we are going to solve both question number part A and B. So in part A, we are saying find his earnings in the week when the sales is 7,500. So we know sales is 7,500. We'll write down the units later, and we need to find what the earnings is. So straight away you can apply the formula. You can say earnings is equals to 500 plus 0.10 times 7,500. Right, so that gives you 500 plus 750. And then you can add them up, and then you get 50 and 7 and 5, 12, right? So we get the answer here as units should be included, $1,250. Now part B is, what is the minimum sales required for the earning of 1,000 a week? Now in this particular case, we may have to rearrange, right? So this time we are given earning and we need to find the sales, right? So that is how we have to work. So in this case, when we use the formula, which is E equals to 500 plus 0.10 S, we are given that the earning is 1,000, right? So we have 1,000 earnings. We need to find what S is. So we have to rearrange, right? So we'll first take away 500 from it. So we get 1,000 minus 500 is equals to 0.10 sales, and that is 500. And we are going to divide this by 0.10 to get the sales amount. And when you divide, you get this amount as 5,000, correct? So for part B, we get the answer, which is $5,000. Is that clear to you? So that is how we are going to solve this question. Let's move on and take question number 6. The ages of John and Peter total 36 years. So you can say, let J be the age of John and P for Peter. And when you add them, their age is 36 years. John's age plus twice Peter's age is 59. So John's age plus twice Peter's age is 59. Do you see how easy it is to write the equations? Now we have to find their ages, right? So let's again number them. So whenever you have more than one equation, it is a good idea to number your equations so that you can work with it. We need to find their individual ages. So one way is that we could just do equation 2 minus equation 1. You could do that. So this minus this. Do you understand? So what I'm trying to say here is we have John plus 2p equals to 59, and we also have John plus p equals to 36. Now if I take the difference between the two, right, if I take away this equation, then as you can see, John, JJ cancel. 2p minus p is only p, and 39 minus 36 gives us 23. So directly we get the value of p, correct? So now we know the age of Peter is 23. We can call this as our equation number 3. And we can substitute this to get John's age, correct? So here in our formula, we could also write from formula 1 that John will be 36 minus p. Is it okay? And then we can use this here to find the value of J. So J will be 36 minus 23, and that gives you 13 years, right? So now we get our answer, which is John is 13 years and Peter is 23 years. Now many times you could also verify whether your answer is correct or not by substituting your values or just thinking back. So if that is their ages, just add them up, and yes, that does add to 36, so it makes sense, correct? Question number 7. The combined mass of A and B is 35. So we are given that A plus B, the mass this time is 35 grams. The mass of A is 4 times the mass of B. We are given A is 4 times B, right? So when we are given this, you could rewrite one equation in terms of the other. Instead of 4A, I could write 4B. So we can also say that 4B plus B is basically 35. Is that clear to you? So sometimes you can straight away look into this and kind of write down your equation in this form, correct? Now, let's see how to solve them. Okay, solution, here we have one equation in terms of B. So I'll continue with this. So we are saying that 4B plus B is 35, and so 5B is 35. So B basically is 35 divided by 5, which is equal to 7. So we know B is 7. And so equation 1 we can now try and get the value of A, right? Rather than 1, I'll use 2, right? So we have equation 1, 2. You could make this as 3. Well, we got this as 4. So A is equals to 4 times B. So 4 times 7, that means, right? So it is 28, correct? So we have our answer, and the answer here is, you have to include the units, right? 28 grams for A, right? Of A, and 7 grams of B. Is that clear to you? So that's how we could do it. Now, the next question here is, 2 friends have $90 between them. If one gave $9 to the other, then they would each have the same amount. How much did each have? Okay, so let's say friends are A and B, right? So again, we'll do that like A plus B. They are total of $90. Now it says if one gave $9 to the other, let's say A has more money, right? Let's say A is more than B. So A gives to B. So in that case, A minus 9, A gave, so it reduced, right? B gains, so B gains $9. So that becomes our equation. Does it make sense to you? So we have now these two equations, equation 1 and 2. Now look back into the question and see how these phrases or sentences get converted into your equation. So when I use phrase, it is for the expression, and when I use this equal to, it becomes a sentence. Do you see that? So 2 friends have $90 between them. Complete sentence. 2 friends have $90 between them. Does it make sense to you? Right? If one gave $9 to the other, so the expression is A minus 9, then they would each have same amount. Complete sentence, equal to, same amount, and the other will gain. So we wrote B plus 9. Perfect. So that is how we will be working with such equations. Now, from one equation, when we say A, we could write A equals to 90 minus B from the first equation, correct? And we'll call this as our equation number 3. And then we'll substitute this in 2. So sub 3 in equation 2, correct? So A is 90 minus B, I'm writing here. I'm writing 90 minus B minus 9 equals to B plus 9. Looks complicated, however, it's not that bad. We can take B on this side, make it positive, bring 9 here. So we get 90 minus 9, another 9 which comes from the other side, B goes to that side. So we have 2B, right? B plus B. And now we can easily solve this. 90 minus 18 we have, right? So B is equal to 90 minus 18, and then we'll divide this by 2. This makes sense to you. So that is how you could do it. And then take away, we get 2 here. 8 take away 1 is 7, divided by 2. So B has $36. If B has $36, A has 90 minus 36, and that becomes 4, and 8 take away this is $54, right? So as you can see, there's a $18 difference between the two, right? So we can write down the answer I'll write down answer here now. So A has dollars 54 and B has dollars 36. And you can verify when you add them up, 6 plus 4 is 10, 3 plus 5 plus 1 is 9. So that works, correct? Question number 9 here is, the length of a rectangle is 5 centimeters longer than the width. So when you have this kind of a situation, it's a good idea to just sketch one and then write down the dimensions. We are saying length of a rectangle is 5 times longer than width. So if this is width, it is 5 times longer. Sorry. Length of the rectangle is 5 centimeters longer, not times, 5 centimeters longer. So 5 centimeters longer. The perimeter is 54. Now perimeter is sum of all the sides. So in a rectangle, these opposite sides are equal. So we are saying 2 times this plus that. That is the perimeter, and this is equal to 54, right? So that is how we get our equation. And now we need to find the area of the rectangle. So important here is to find the area, right? That is what we need to find. Okay. So let's first solve the equation. We have 2 times width plus 5 is 54. So we could divide by 2, and this is 2w, right? So we have 2w plus 5 is equal to 54 half, correct? Which is 27, correct? So we have 2w equals to 27 minus 5, which is 22. So width will be 22 divided by 2 equals to 11. So once we get a width of 11, we know length will be w plus 5, which is 11 plus 5 or 16, correct? So we get a rectangle which is now width was 11 and we found this to be 16, correct? And we are interested in area, so area will be 11 times 16, correct? So that becomes the area. So you could always multiply. 11 times 6 is 66 and 11 times 1 is 11, so 176, and the units will be centimeter square. Is that correct? So that is how we can get the solution, and we can write down the answer here is 176 centimeter square. Perfect. So that is how we should be doing it. Now here, question number 10. Cindy is 3 years older than Nicole. So we'll say C, right? C for Cindy. 3 years older means n plus 3. So that is how their ages are related. The sum of their ages is 31. So if I add them up, that means C plus n, what I get is 31. Determine their ages, right? So that becomes our equation. And now let us see how to solve it. So we have 2 equations. You may number them as 1 and 2, right? So we can say this is 1, this is 2. How will you solve this? Well, one way is, we know C is n plus 3, we'll substitute here. So we'll solve by substitution. So we'll sub 1 in 2, correct? So C is n plus 3, I'm writing it here. So we get n plus 3 plus n equals to 31. So we get equation in one variable, correct? So adding these two n's, we have 2n plus 3 equals to 31. Take 3 to the other side, so 2n equals to 31 minus 3. Sorry, 2n, right? So 2n is equal to, when you take away, we get 28, right? And now we know what the value of n is. So we'll just continue. So n is equals to 28 divided by 2, which is 14. Once you know what n is, you can also write what c is. C is 3 more than n, so we get C as 17. So there we go. We get our answer that their ages are, for Cindy, it is 17 years, and for Nicole, it is 14 years. Clear? Question number 14. The ratio of angles in a triangle is 1:2:6. Find the length of the longest side of a triangle. Okay, so let's sketch a triangle here. Okay. So we are saying ratio is 1 is to 2 is to 6. Let us say multiply each by x. So now we get that ratio 1 is to 2 is to 6. Does it make sense? So we say ratio of angles. This was the sides which we are saying, but actually it is the angle. So smallest side will be against the smallest. So we are saying this as, I should not have written outside. I should have written x here, right? So let me just erase this. Right, so x, and this is 2x angles, and that is 6x. Okay. Well, the ratio of sides is proportional to the angles also, so that was not very wrong, but not as given in the condition. So the ratio of angles, these are the angles. They are in the ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 6. Find the length of the longest side. Find the length. So the question is confusing. Find the, not the length. We cannot find the length from here, right? So that is why there is a mistake here. So it should have been the ratio of angles in the triangle is 1 is to 2 is to 6. Find the largest angle. That makes sense, right? So we'll find what is the largest angle. Now in a triangle, they are related. Sum of angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. So important to remember here is that sum of interior angles equals to 180 degrees, right? So that actually gives us the relation, and so the equation is that x plus 2x plus 6x is equal to 180 degrees, correct? So that becomes our equation. Now let us solve this. To solve, we'll just combine all these x's. 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 6 is 9. So we get 9x equals to 180 degrees. X is equal to 180 degrees divided by 9. So we get this value as 20 degrees, correct? So once we have x as 20 degrees, the largest is 6 times x, correct? So we can write down the largest angle is what? So the largest angle is 6x. So it is 6 times 20, or is equals to 120 degrees, correct? So that becomes the answer. So we write down the answer here. Is 120 degrees. Okay, sorry for this typing error that created a confusion in even making the sketch, correct? So the question here is that the ratio of angles of a triangle is 1 is to 2 is to 6. Find the largest angle, correct? Okay. Question number 12. The product of two consecutive odd numbers is 10 more than square of the smaller number. That's confusing. Consecutive means which come together, and we are talking about consecutive odd. So we have to skip by 1, correct? So if one is x, the other one is x plus 2. So these are your consecutive odd numbers. Okay. Now the question is, the product of two consecutive odd numbers is 10 more than. So product will be x times x plus 2. So product of two consecutive odd numbers is 10 more than square of the smaller number. So square of the smaller means x square plus 10. Does it make sense to you? 10 more than square. Find the numbers. So that is the equation which we have, and now we have to solve this equation to find the solution. So let's open this bracket. So we have this equation as x times x plus 2 equals to x square plus 10. So when you multiply distributive property, we get x square plus 2x equals to x square plus 10. Taking x square to the left side, we get x square plus 2x minus x square equals to 10. So that is 0. So we get 2x equals to 10. X is equals to 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So we get the value of x as 5. So what are the numbers? Numbers are x and x plus 2. And so we can write down the numbers are consecutive numbers. which we are looking for is 5 and 5 plus 2, which is 7. Okay? So that is our answer. 5 and 7. Question number 13. Our solar system has total of 63 moons and planets. So let's say M for moons and P for planets, and we are saying it is 63. 3 times the number of moons, 3 times the number of moons, minus 4 times the number of planets, minus 4 times the number of planets is 126. How many planets are there? So as you read, you can make an equation, and then you can solve. Does it make sense to you? Right. Now, what we can also do is rearrange here and write our equation number 3, which could be M is equals to 63 minus P. Now, that will help us to solve it. So, we'll use these 3 equations rather than 2 to solve. So, now we have 3M minus 4P equals to 126, and we know M is 63 minus P. So we'll substitute this value here, right? So we can write 3 times 63 minus P minus 4P equals to 126, correct? Open this. 3 times 3 is 9 and times 6 is 18 minus 3P minus 4P equals to 126. So we will bring the numbers on this side, 189 minus 126. These two negative quantities, when they add, they become 7. And taking this on the right side, we get 7P. Correct? So 129 minus 189 minus 126. 9 take away 6 is 3. 8 take away 2 is 6. 1 take away 1 is 0, is 7P. So 63 divided by 7 is the number of planets, which is 9. Correct? So we know there are 9 planets. And once we know this is 9, we can find the moons as 63 minus 9. Correct? So which gives us 54. So the answer here is, so we have planets as 9 and moons as 54. Correct? So that becomes the answer for this particular question. Clear? Slightly tricky. These 2 questions are very interesting. I'd like you to really understand how to solve them. And now move on to the last 2 questions. The question here deals with the money. Question number 14. I have $8.25 in pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. I have twice as many nickels as pennies, 1 fewer dime than nickel, 1 more quarter than nickel. How many dimes do I have? Slightly complicated question, right? So pennies, we'll say pennies is P, N for nickels, D for dimes, Q for quarters, right? Now, most of you will know that penny is just 1 cent, right? So this is 1 cent, and nickel means 5 cents, dime means 10 cents, and quarter means 25, and these are in cents. So we'll convert everything to cents, and so it becomes 825 cents. Is it okay? So that will help us to avoid decimals. Now, let's write down the equations. I have twice as many nickels as pennies. 1 fewer dime than nickel. 1 more quarter than nickel. So everything is given in terms of nickels. First statement says, I have twice as many nickels as pennies. So I have more nickels, right? So say if P is my pennies, then I have twice as many nickels as pennies. So if P is pennies, then nickels are 2N. That is how they are related. Is it okay? 1 fewer dime than nickel. So as far as dime is concerned, 1 fewer dime than nickel. So nickel minus 1 fewer dime than nickel. 1 more quarter. So as far as quarter is concerned, it is 1 more than nickel. So that is the money which I have in numbers. Now, it says we have total of so much cents. How does that relate? Well, each penny will be worth 1 cent. Each nickel will be worth 5 cents. Dime will be 10 cents. Quarter will be 25 cents. So if I'm relating the amounts, it will be 825 will be equal to. So as far as pennies are concerned, we'll use 2n, right? I have twice as many nickels as pennies. So nickels are, sorry. It should be half. Pennies will be half of nickels. It says, I have twice as many nickels. Nickels are more, right? So nickels are 2 times pennies. So I'm sorry. Pennies are half the number of nickels. Okay. So that is how it is. So we can now write the relation in terms of nickels. So if we have p pennies, right? So we have p pennies, then it will be multiplied by 1 cent. Plus, if we have n nickels, it will be multiplied by 5. So 5n plus 10 dimes. And quarters is 25. That is the cent value of each. But we have all these terms in terms of nickels, n, right? So the first sentence is slightly more confusing. I have twice as many nickels, more nickels I have as pennies. So pennies are half of nickels, right? So pennies are half of nickels. We'll write everything in terms of nickels. We can write 825 is equals to, this will become half of nickel. This is 5 of nickel. And this is, instead of d, I'll write n minus 1. So it is 10 times n minus 1. And quarters is n plus 1. So it is 25 times n plus 1. Is that clear to you? So that becomes your equation. Now in this equation we have only n, the nickels, which we need to figure out. So let's try to solve this equation here. So I'm rewriting this here as 825 is equal to half of n plus 5n. So we'll just open the bracket. Plus 10n minus 10 plus 25n plus 25, correct? So let's bring all these numbers on the left side. So we get 825 and we'll add 10 to it. Take away 25. And all these n's we can combine. So we have half of n plus 5 of n plus 10 of n plus 25 of n. Is it okay? So when you do this part, when you take away 25, you get 800, and when you add 10, you get 810. And on this side, what do you get? 25 plus 10, 35 plus 5, 40, and 40 plus half, we get 40.5 nickel, right? So we'll just write it in decimals, right? So 40.5 is kind of half of 81, you can think about it, right? So from here, we can find what nickel is by dividing this by 40.5. So nickel is 810 divided by 40.5. Is that okay? So when you divide this, this will go 20 times. You can use calculator if you want to. So we'll do 810 divided by 40.5, which is 20, correct? 40.5 is half of 81, right? So we get number of nickels as 20. Now what do we need to find? We need to find the number of dimes. As far as the dimes is concerned, it is 1 less than n. So from here, we know d should be equal to 20 minus 1, which is 19, correct? So now we can write down our answer, and the answer will be 19 dimes. Is that clear to you? So that is how this question will be solved. Slightly tricky. It also involves fractions. Now let's move on to the last question, which is question number 15. The sum of smaller of the two consecutive integers and twice the larger integer is 47. What are the integers? So I'd like you to pause the video, answer this yourself, right? That's not very difficult. We're done right in the beginning, a question like this. Now we're talking about two integers. So let the integers be a and b, right? Now it says sum of the smaller of the two consecutive. When say consecutive, that means we are talking about a and the other one is a plus 1. That b should be a plus 1. So sum of the smaller of the two consecutive integers and twice the larger integer is 47. So So it says sum of the smaller of the two is a, smaller of the two consecutive integers, and twice the larger plus 2 times a plus 1, twice the larger is 47. Does make sense to you? What are the integers? That is the equation to solve. Clear? So sometimes you may have to read the question a couple of times to understand what are they asking for. Remember, consecutive integers really means one after the other. So the other number is one greater, or it could be one less also. Okay. Now let's just add this up. So we have a plus 2 times a plus 1 is 47. So when you open the bracket, we get a plus 2a plus 2 equals to 47. So take this 2 on this side. 2a plus a is 3a equals to 47 minus 2, which is 49. And so we get 3a equals, 45. So 3a is 45 minus, 45. And then we divide both sides by 3. So we get a as, right? So 3a is 45 divided by 3, which is 15. And so we can get the numbers, right? So our consecutive numbers are, let's write down the answer, are 15 and 16. One more, right? So as you have seen that now the consecutive numbers should be 15 and 16. So you can also check with this value. If you add 1 to 16, it is 17 times 2 is 34. And adding 34 to 15 will give you 47. So it works, correct? So with this, we come to an end of our series on working with linear relations. We took up 15 questions in increasing difficulty, and I hope you found them interesting and useful. Now, there are many other questions in the playlist which I encourage you to go through, and I hope that helps. Feel free to write a comment, share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for your time and all the best.